Troy Hadeed is a yoga teacher, spiritual thinker, author, and a truth seeker whose message is steeped in humility, surrender, and radical honesty. In this soulful conversation, we explore what it means to slow down, to listen, and to remember who we are beyond the labels, the noise, and the pace of everyday life. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence, and I'm so honored to be sharing this moment with you. Troy, this journey with yoga has always felt deeply personal to you and expansive.
Yeah, I think it depends how you view yoga, how you define yoga, if you define yoga and what box you put yoga in. I think yoga was a part of my life before I knew what yoga was. Because I think the greatest yogi for me is Christ. And through teachings of Christ, I began to understand what yoga truly is. And somebody might raise their eyebrow and be like, well, what's he talking about? Yoga is just postures. Well, actually, no. The philosophy of yoga is dissolving the individual self, the identity with the individual self, so that we see God in everyone, in everything. This is the ultimate, this is the foundation of the root and philosophy of yoga. Well, how does that happen? Through a physical practice. Well, not all yoga is physical, for one, but at the very root of yoga practice is the quieting and the fluctuation of the mind. And the mind is where the identity, individual identity exists. The more we begin to quiet that voice of the mind and cultivate a relationship to it, the more we actually begin to maybe glimpse what it might be like to embody yoga, to dissolve this identity with individual self, so we could serve that something bigger. So I think through the influence of this man called Jesus, I'm sure, yeah, if it wasn't for church, I would not have known Christ. But the depth of my relationship and understanding of Christ did not come through that avenue. It came through coming to know Christ outside of the establishment, But my first influence to yoga as we know it, as someone might know it, was at 14 years old, when I was randomly given a book to read by a teacher in detention. And that book and that text was on some teachings of yoga.
Great. So we talk about stillness as a radical act, and stillness is a radical act for so many people. And I'm sure maybe you've had your moments in the earlies. In a world of constant doing, we're constantly doing and running and going. Stillness can feel like a rebellion to self. What role has stillness played in your own healing and transformation?
Um, your mind runs a racket. And I think at the root of everything that's misaligned in our world is the idea of separation and division and otherness. It's the identity with everything else, race, religion, nationality, opinion, ideology, all of these things that separate us, sexual orientation. All of these things separate us at the very root of all misalignment. It's otherness and separation. So I think when one begins to quiet the mind a little bit and glimpse these bits of stillness, it's almost like we dissolve certain aspects of our attachment to identity. We begin to see things as part of ourselves. We see things as part of God. But essentially, the mind creates noise. The mind is a circus, and it's not bad. But if left its own demise, it will create ongoing chatter, overwhelm, anxiety, chaos in our lives and in our head. And I believe that the more we begin to cultivate a relationship with the mind, the more we begin to hear the voice of God. I believe that Spirit speaks to all of us. But if your mind is too loud, then all we hear is the narratives and the conditioning and all these voices that fill our lives, and those are so loud that often we can't hear voice of God. What some might call intuition, sure, call it whatever you like, you know.
Absolutely. I
So
totally agree with that.
I would say that's played a massive part in my life, but I still struggle with it. Absolutely, like you know, you don't have to speak of to embody something to speak of it, and I share it, I speak of it, I teach it, I practice it, but it is still very much a struggle. Stillness is very much a struggle, always.
Yeah, I found that to be
Yeah,
true as well. I just the stories keep going, and sometimes it keeps me awake because I can't get still enough.
yeah,
And for me, it's a work in I'm a work in progress as
yeah.
well. How does putting thoughts to paper help us get closer to the parts of ourselves we sometimes silence?
Yeah. What's funny is that, you know, when I wrote the book, one of the things I did not want is all the questions at the end of the chapter. That's something I was completely against.
Right.
And of course, as the book took on a life of its own, I realized that was an absolute necessity. So I would say I don't speak of journaling as a practice, but I 100% believe in it as a practice.
Okay.
Because in writing that book, it gave me the opportunity to really excavate and refine my own ideologies and opinions and get clarity on what I myself believed. Because I now had to put myself in the shoes of a reader.
Mm,
I knew what I was trying to say.
right.
I knew what I believed. But in putting myself in the shoes of someone else who maybe did not understand what I was trying to say, it forced me to get so much clarity in excavating my own opinions, ideologies, philosophies. So I
Right.
do believe in journaling. And I think if someone does it correctly, it can be a very powerful tool. It is not a practice that I have daily of my own as such, you know.
Right. And you know, it's
Yeah,
funny because I have tried to journal and I fail miserably. I just can't do it,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah,
So I try to find other ways. These days, AI is a powerful tool to help me do that, to kind of keep
yeah.
track of myself. Troy, in your amazing book that I'm still reading, I think I'm three-quarter way through it.
Yeah.
My name is Love. We're not all that different. You write, the desire to express oneself authentically is instinctive, but societal conditioning causes us to question how we feel. And I dare say how we act. Can you
Yeah.
share a time in your life when expressing yourself authentically required courage and how that moment shaped your sense of wellness?
Um, well, how authenticity shapes your sense of wellness is that if you're inauthentic, you create stress and disease in your body. Um,
Exactly.
and I remember reading that the very foundation of depression and anxiety is inauthenticity.
Really?
So is doing or saying or is doing or saying or pretending to be someone or something that you don't really align with.
Right.
That would create disease and stress in one's body, right? In one's being. So that's how it would create a lack of a misalignment in regards to what someone might call wellness.
Yes.
Those aren't necessarily words I would use, but yes, for me, I think that shows up for me every single day. I think I struggle every day because I try to show up in a world and encourage people showing up in a world and building community where we exist in a space that isn't just about us. We live in a world that's about me and I and my experience and my wants, my desires, my needs. And I try my very best to show up in a way that really includes something bigger than that. And it's very hard to do that, not only to embody that, that's a struggle every day, but to get other people to understand my perspectives, my opinions, my approaches, my understanding, my views, my opinions, what I might bring to the table is, I believe, a daily struggle. It's hard. And, I have a post, I think it's going to drop tomorrow, and it's around sexual orientation. And June is Pride Month, and that post is about the fact that it's still a criminal act to be homosexual in our country. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, that is a conditioning that the majority of people in our country still abide by and think that it's okay or right or wrong, whether their views are shaped by church or their views are shaped by whatever. That is highly, that's a violation of human rights. And even if people don't agree with that, well, why are we not saying anything about that? Because that should not just be a fight for those who identify as part of that community. That should be a fight for everyone to voice, because it is, along with many other things. But just for example, that is one in which I'm not sure if there's going to be pushback. I'm not sure how people are going to react to me vocally voicing that opinion. But it's how I feel. And I'm at a point now in my life where, for 2025, I've become very active on social media. And I've realized that I don't know how much longer I have. I really don't. None of us do. And I always said I would live to 140. I don't know if that's true. And I realized that my life can be taken from me at any moment in any way. And I have some really important things to say. And frankly, I really don't care how people react to it, because I know that, let me rephrase, I do care. I do care what they think, because I want to reach them. I think there are things that have to be said, and the things that people aren't saying, and the things that have to be heard. So I do care. But I know that for me to be authentic, the things that have to be said and have to be spoken. And I'm at a place in my life now where I just know it has to be said. And that's part of me being authentic,
It's interesting, just being off topic for a second, but that creates, when you say you don't care, I understand when you said it, but you're right, you do care because you want to start a conversation. You want to open this in a way that people stop, they think, and they say, maybe I haven't looked at it in this way before. So you really want to be a catalyst for a conversation.
Exactly, which is why, this thing we love to say, I don't care what people think. That's disassociation, that's disconnect, and that is fed by the individual identity. I do care what people think.
Yeah.
I may disregard what they think as BS, because I might see their conditioning and not align with it.
Right.
But at the same time, not only do I want them to hear and consider my perspective and what I have to offer, I also am committed to seeing my own misalignment. And they may have something to offer that I am not seeing.
Right.
So I do care, because their healing is my healing, and my healing is their healing. So I do very much care.
Yeah. And then when you consider that we are truly all one. With each other, with the environment, it makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that. Many people hold back in their own wellness journey, whether it's yoga, meditation, or just as you were just talking about, speaking your truth because they fear judgment. That's what we were just talking about. What would you
Yeah.
say to someone who holds back from being fully themselves?
Um, I would say you are doing an injustice to yourself and everyone else
Mm,
because you have something really beautiful to offer.
right.
And as long as it does not hurt or harm people, or it can be delivered in a compassionate way, um, that if you are inauthentic, that's a massive injustice to everyone, and also to spirit, and also to God, because God or spirit may have something that wants to come through you. And if you neglect that from coming through because you're concerned of what people might think,
Yeah.
well, that's no good. That's no good. And here's the other reality. And this, someone can take this two ways, right? No one's going to remember. No one's going to remember your name or what you've done or what you said. And whatever you experience, even if we have to experience suffering or disconnect or judgment from somebody for a brief moment, it's just temporary. And our
Mm,
lifetime is just temporary, but our contribution to human consciousness and the evolution of society, that lives forever. No
powerful.
one's gonna remember, no one's gonna remember us as individuals. So if they have to judge us or push back on us for a moment, then cool. You
Yeah.
know, for me, my biggest teacher, like I mentioned, is Christ. He was a revolutionary.
Yes, he was, wasn't he?
Majority of people didn't like what he had to say.
Mm,
So much so that right now, today, people still aren't correctly representing what he had to say. Because if they did, it would create a stir.
mm.
It would create an absolute stir.
Oh, it just gave me chills there, Troy. For you, yoga and meditation are not just practices, of course.
Yeah.
They embody your way of being. What does it look like to carry those principles off the mat? Because I know you're also a speaker, and into everyday life, especially in leadership or corporate spaces.
What does it look like? It looks like an ongoing struggle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it looks like and I wanna start speaking about it publicly more because a lot of people think, well, I've been practicing yoga for 20 years, I've been doing yoga, I've been teaching yoga, I speak about these things, I teach about these things. So it's almost like they put you up on a pedestal and they expect you to be Christ-like. Let me use that word. I use that word because that is my vision. If I had a vision of what I want to embody, that is what I want to embody one day.
Wow.
But I am human, and our humanness is an ongoing, humbling experience. I lose my temper. I disappoint people, and it's an ongoing struggle. But things come to us and through us, and the things that come to me and through me call to be spoken, so I have to speak them. But it's a struggle, and mindfulness yoga is a practice. Um, Going to church is a practice.
Mm.
Plant ceremonies is a practice. Prayer is a practice. Um, in the conventional sense, right? We have
Yeah.
all of these practices, right? Meditation, prayer, plant ceremonies, cacao ceremonies, going to church, all these things, all these practices that the ego really gets attached to, and they're all meaningless. Every one of them is absolutely meaningless. None of them mean, and I say this with confidence, none of them mean we're any closer to God or any more realized than anyone else. They're practices that help us get over ourselves to serve something bigger. But the only practice that really matters is love and God. You can go to church every day for 50 years. You could show up on your mat and meditate and do yoga every day for 50 years. It does not mean anything. It's a useful practice, but it doesn't really mean anything other than you are trying your best to show up to get out of your own way, you know?
Mm. Your book is called My Name is Love. What does that mean to you, to live as love? Because every time we communicate, you start off with love and you
Yeah.
sign off with love. Uh, how does that inform how we care for ourselves and other, that focus on love? Because I'll tell you, Troy, when I started reading your book, love just jumps out at me. Last night
Yeah.
it struck me, and no, I'm not being facetious or anything like that. It was 1 o'clock this morning, I think, and this book is sitting on my desk. I've been reading, preparing, and it struck me that in the dim light, I saw Jesus. I saw the darkness all around, and I saw just your face, and I saw love. What are you attempting to do by positioning yourself, and this is off script, positioning yourself as that love and put the pursuit of being Christ-like?
Yeah. So much was said there, Christine. Yeah, when I don't know where to begin. But I will say first off that one of the other things I was absolutely against was my face being any cover of that book.
Mm.
And that picture was taken by accident. And the story's in the book. It wasn't
Yes.
planned in any way. And when I saw that photo, I did not see myself.
Mhm.
I did not see myself. When I first looked at that photo, I felt like I was looking into the eyes of someone I had not yet met, or part of myself I had not yet met. Did I say that right? Yeah, I had not yet met. Two funny words. And it was a very powerful experience for me when I first looked at that picture. Because I believe that she made the photographer captured something that lives in everyone. And that photo was taken at a point in time when I was completely exhausted. I had nothing left. I was ripped to shreds. And I think when we lose every sense of who we think we are, is when God can come through, is when Spirit can come through. When we lose this sense of identity. And, somebody looked at that photo once and said, this photo doesn't match the name of the book. I said, why? They said, because that looks like the most powerful man in the room. I said, it is. Because at that point in time, he had nothing to lose. So when somebody has nothing to lose and have given up every sense of who they think they are, it's only at that point in time that we can understand what it means to love. Because we have nothing to lose. As long as we have something to lose, our unconscious programming is self-preservation.
Right.
It's I, it's me. When we lose that sense of self, is when we begin to understand what it means to love. So for you to say that any dim light or whatever, that is what you saw, and I don't say this from my egotistical in any way point. I believe that comes through all of us. As long as we can get ourselves out of the way, that seed of God lives in all of us. And that is also why the book is called My Name is Love, because that is all I ever want to identify with is love and God. I don't want to identify with Trinidadian, a yoga teacher, being white, Arab, X, Y, and Z. I identify with love. I identify with God. And those are two things that make us all the same. And that is all I ever will identify with.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question, but
that's perfect. It's perfect for me.
yeah. I will add, because I'm not recalling your original question, why is it important for me to communicate? It's because we live in a will of separation. We live in a will of division. And one of the for example, Bob Marley, Haile Selassie, said, until the color of a man's eyes have no more significance than the color of his skin, there will be war. There will always be war, as long as we see ourselves as separate and different and other. Teachings of Christ said, what you do to the least of your brothers and sisters, you do unto me. Like, why we talk about these things, but we say them as if we don't quite understand what they mean, or as if they're above and beyond us. Well, Christ said, Luke 17:21, I believe it is, you will do far greater things than I have ever done.
Yes.
Right? So why are we not talking about that? Right? Why are we so obsessed with the narrative that we are born sinners and we will not be good enough ever? Because that is not what Christ taught. That might be what the church has taught, and I have nothing against the church or the establishment. But do I want to create a shift in that culture? Absolutely. Yes, because I feel it is misaligned in so many ways. And whether someone identifies with the church or Christianity or Islam or Rasta or whatever, dissolve it, because Christ didn't abide by any of those things. Christ was a teacher. He was whether you could consider him a prophet, a savior, a teacher, or whatever, a man who was enlightened. I don't think he cares. What he cares about is the teaching, the fundamental understanding that we can embody this. And whoever told us we can't and it was beyond us, that's a false narrative. So I would love for people to wake up to that, because I know at some point no one's going to remember my name, and no one might even pay attention to anything I'm saying until after I leave my body. But I know that resonance is there, and at some point people will dial into it, and hopefully it would create a shift in some way.
I thank you so much, Troy. And I really do hope we get more opportunities. We create more opportunities to have a conversation, because I think people need to hear this. We're living in very challenging times. And, a couple of weeks ago, the pastor was saying that there will be wars and there will be rumors of wars. And the challenge now is not for us to get scared. This is not the end. And so we have come to the end. Based on what I'm hearing, we've come to the end of one age of descending, and now we're in an ascending age, where more people are opening up to receiving the message that you have. So I'd love to chat with you about that sometime.
Well, I would just add to what your pastor said, because I think it's really important. What if it is the end? Where's our faith? Where's our faith? Because if you believe in an existence after you leave your body, then you are not your body.
No, we aren't.
And that was one of the biggest teachings of Christ in the resurrection. We are not our bodies. So sure, this may not be the end, but if it is,
that's fine.
So what? We show up from a place of love in every way we can, and forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
We're almost out of time.
Yeah.
Can I say I love you? Have a beautiful day, Troy. God bless you.
Christine, love you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for sharing the Soulful space with us. Remember, the future of wellness begins within. Be well, stay present, and as always, let's thrive together.